Welcome to the Open Source and Finance Forum. Today, we're going to be talking about accelerating InnerSource adoption with Backstage. I'm Cara Delia, along with Balaji Siva. I'm a senior principal architect at Red Hat, and Balaji is a head of our product developer tools at Red Hat. And next, we're going to talk about our goals today. We're going to explore the relationship between open source and InnerSource, talk about why teams would want to experience with InnerSource, especially within a regulated environment, and analyze how organizations can adopt InnerSource and accelerate InnerSource with Backstage and practical use cases and resources that are associated with Backstage. Think of InnerSource this way, as a way of practicing open source methods inside the organizational firewall. It's a way of embracing some of open source known benefits in order to drive specific kinds of changes. Next, we're going to talk about some of the open practices that are already known. These are new organizational techniques and architectures, all aimed at creating a more agile, innovative, and an accountable environment for your teams. And this is a way to act with purpose and generate more value quickly. No single technique is perfect for any organization. Different organizations require different techniques. What's most important to recognize is that organizational movements like these, from Scrum to Agile to DevOps to whatever tomorrow will bring, are all predicated on a similar impulse, and that is a desire to be more open, more collaborative, and to act across the organization more efficiently. InnerSource is one of these techniques, and it's the one we're going to be focusing on for the rest of our time together. What is InnerSource? Let's set the level of the playing field. InnerSource is the use of open source software development best practices around establishing an open source culture within your organization for development of non-open source and or proprietary software. I'd like to outline a few basic concepts that can help you to understand and determine what InnerSource is, but also why you would want to use it. It's a set of practices derived from open source development methods, but it's a set of principles also derived from open source culture focused on collaboration, transparency, and inclusion. Why would you want to use InnerSource? Organizations adopt InnerSource when they wish to use the benefits of open source, but they want to do it within their internal firewalls, like we've already mentioned. So you can accelerate development and encourage collaboration across your lines of business. You can break down those internal silos. You can openly have internal development with software and encourage the primary development benefits of collaboration between parties. This kind of collaboration is by default and has very many benefits. It also can increase transparency and accountability for your teams. Open source communities enforce accountability through transparency. When everyone can view the code and everyone is aware of where changes have been made and by whom, they also have access to version histories and can be more readily understood in the project's library. They can all collaborate on the same shared documentation. And also it can improve morale. Simply put, people enjoy working the open source way. It's a more rewarding and encouraging way to work. As I said before, working the open source way encourages collaboration, which opens up internal silos and improves communication between teams. Next, we'll talk about when InnerSource, when to consider InnerSource. There is the times when you're working in a regulated industry, such as financial services, that you would want to be more conservative. And with regard to sharing your IP. And especially if there are less mature standards at play. You might want to consider InnerSource at this time. If you have sensitive data, or if you want to experiment in a way that you can fail fast, but in a safe confines of your own organization. And if you want to collaborate on high value intellectual property or IP. Moreover, you may be working on software that incorporates or interfaces with confidential data in some way, and perhaps that complex work of securing that data appropriately isn't something your team is ready to tackle in the open. So the risk of a leak outage or outweighs the benefits of open source development, and that would be a time when you would want to really leverage InnerSource. Next, we'll talk about why not InnerSource. Why not InnerSource? Because InnerSource only partially implements open source models and methods. However, some organizations encounter limitations and drawbacks. So to put it more simply, limiting activity to internal domains doesn't always allow organizations to reap the full benefits of working the open source way. For example, you can find yourself in technical debt and potential rework or reinventing the wheel. InnerSource typically involves forking an open source project and working on an in-house version. But doing so can mean that the organization is out of sync when the work has been done upstream within the community, and if there have been new fixes to bugs. So in this case, the organization will miss on those key updates. Also, when there is a lack of influence in the upstream communities. A key benefit of participating in open source is eventually contributing enough to accrue some influence in a project to really impact the strategy of its direction, the roadmap, the features. Teams practicing InnerSource don't make that connection when they are leveraging InnerSource and not in the external community. But there's also limited innovation and cross-industry collaboration that wouldn't necessarily happen. Open source is a powerful engine of innovation because it allows an organization to benefit from ideas, enhancements, and also talent outside the walls. It allows an organization to tap rich talent pools to solve problems and find solutions faster. Next, we'll talk about accelerating InnerSource with Backstage. And with that, I hand it over to my colleague, Balaji.
Thanks, Cara, for the great introduction about InnerSource and when and why and how to do that in organizations. I want to specifically focus on how Backstage can be a great tool to be able to accelerate your InnerSource strategy. As you may want to do the InnerSource strategy, it's a great tool. And we have some couple of examples in the later part of the presentation that talks about how organizations are able to use Backstage to be able to achieve exactly that. So before we get into Backstage, just talk about what is internal developer portal or platform. So these are basically a platform that's built by a platform team to allow the developers to be able to follow a golden path to enable developer self-service. This is really an important part to enable collaboration among your developers. You have a lot of teams developing a lot of things. The ability to collaborate effectively is a big part of how you're going to get InnerSource strategy working. So that's part of the first thing is to have a single platform for your developers to collaborate. The poster child for this collaboration in internal developer portal, the CNCF standard is what we call Backstage. Backstage is originally contributed by Spotify, one of the companies that are still actively pursuing and pushing this adoption of the technology. And we Red Hat has also joined the community along with others in terms of adopting this particular project to allow developers across many enterprises to be able to work together. Collaboration that enables them to have increased developer productivity. So developer portal essentially functions as an access point to your typical internal developer platforms. So that basically brings all the interface, all the tools that a developer is using and bring it together. So there are a lot of adopters of Backstage already, many in the financial sectors, like Fidelity, for example, in this case, many more, Deutsche Telekom. We're going to talk about Deutsche Telekom later. Many adopters are already using Backstage in production. And if you're not already using Backstage, you should take a look at it and see if it is a good fit for you. And I'm going to explain to you why it could be a good fit for you, particularly if you're adopting InnerSource strategy. So there are 5 parts to Backstage. Here's a list there, but essentially the main part is the centralized software catalog. And we'll show you some screenshots on how it looks like. That essentially keeps track of all the software that you have. This is the important part, because as you want to have developers collaborate and uh, take different components and reuse some of the components, it is an essential part for them to be able to see everything in one place. The plugins allow you to extend the functionality and customization, so the developers can bring in the tools and the technology that they have and make it as part of their life cycle of software development. The software templates, or the golden path templates, is basically a standardized way to create new software or to deploy new software, and you can leverage the best practices across your entire organization, either for compliance reasons or for best practices or efficiency reasons. Tech docs is another way to share among your developers, is the ability to create and maintain documentation about various software components. These could be useful for collaboration. If somebody's trying to have an InnerSource strategy, they want to know how to use a specific component, for example, and the tech docs allows you to do that. And then the search function of the Backstage essentially allows you to obviously find the right information that's available across the Backstage ecosystem. So let's dig into each of those components in a little bit more detail. So the software catalog essentially maintains the whole history of all the components that are in your organization. This is very useful for developers to collaborate and learn about different modules that somebody else is building. If you look at typical InnerSource strategy, it revolves around ability to reuse other developers' work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel for a lot of reasons. One is time and money and cost, as well as you want to have best practices built one way and then not up to, and then you can reuse that information. So it's a very important part of that information. And the catalog is all maintained in YAML files. They are stored as code, so you can obviously be able to easily update this information in a Git fashion, in a typical GitOps fashion. So here's how catalog looks like. If you look at the Backstage UI, you would have all of these software available in your organization be available, so you can see who the owner is and what is the life cycle of the particular catalog is. And you can, as you dig deeper, you can also get into all the details about the catalog in a second. The other part is around plugins. We talked about plugins add additional functionality to your Backstage portal. So this is essentially allows you to have developers using GitHub for source code, Jenkins for build, and GitLab for CD, and SonarQube and Snyk for different SAST, DAST tools. They're all available as part of the portal that they can use to learn about the products, learn about the software. So as you can look here, this is how a catalog looks like. I can click through individual software components and be able to, these are the plugins. You can see there are different kinds of plugins that you have, and you have all the information that you need, including all the way from pull requests to CI and a CD. And you also look at who owns this, what the software of each of the components looks like, all available in one single place. This obviously helps the individual developer to be productive, but also be able to the other developers to be able to see what's the latest and how they can benefit from this approach. You can also see here how different components come together for a specific particular application, and you're able to leverage each of that learnings. The software template we talked about is the ability to provide a golden path template for developers to be able to reuse existing best practices and compliant way to build software. And that's what software template is all about. So here you can see what are the available templates that are available across the organization that you can use to quickly get started on an application. A new developer who's onboarding a new service, for example, don't have to go through weeks of trying to figure out how to deploy us or bring over a new software to market to the company. So they're able to quickly go through this template concept, and these templates are fully source code controlled, so you can obviously edit that template and have it available and version controlled, etc. The other thing is a tech doc. Tech doc is docs like code, basically. And so it's built directly into Backstage. The code is maintained in Markdown files. So this allows you developers to essentially share how to use the software, how the software is built, and how to help other people who are trying to reuse the software. So tech doc is a great way to essentially help developers to be productive and be able to understand what the other groups are doing and how to use the software correctly. So here you can see that there are docs as one of the options. You see there, you can see that this particular component has many docs that you can look at, and other developers can learn from it and how to use this particular documentation. And last part is a search. Search essentially, you're bringing a lot of catalog items, a lot of software together. You're bringing all the tools that are part of that particular software development together. So the search allows you to obviously find the information that you're looking for. And that's very important. And if you have a large system with a lot of developers wanting to find information and ability to use best practices or be able to use other inner source technology, inner source the information from others, you're able to find this information. So as you can see here, you can search on anything right from the main page. You're able to find the relevant information either in the documentation or catalog or anywhere else within the Backstage ecosystem. So Red Hat is committed to open source, as you know, we've done. And we are a large open source company. We've contributed to lots and lots of projects across the world, across many different CNCF projects. And Backstage is one of the key commitment we are making in terms of helping enterprises adopt internal developer portals. And Red Hat is contributing many things to the Backstage community. We are part of the community. We are doing plugins to help with the growth of the ecosystem of Backstage, as well as contributing to the core features as well as we move along. So we are excited to announce our enterprise distribution of Backstage called the Red Hat Developer Hub, which you can see the link down below. And what it does is provide you a distribution, a secure build and distribution of the Backstage, as well as support. As you start adopting Backstage in your production, you will need probably support from somebody, and we're happy to provide that. It's fully customizable in terms of what you can do with it. We haven't changed any of those flexibility that Backstage provides. You continue to have that. You have simple lifecycle management as you start to deploy in production. You want to maintain the instance itself in an easy fashion. We also are introducing something called dynamic plugins, which is basically allows you to plug in a new architecture without having to rebuild or deploy the Backstage instance. So if you're using Developer Hub, you're able to add in new plugins, either it's your own plugin or plugin from third party, and be able to install it live in the production system. We realize also role-based access control is important. As you start giving, particularly in the financial industry, as you start providing access to everybody, every developer access, you want to make sure that there are enterprise level RBAC control to ensure that you still ability to maintain your requirements on financial regulation, industry regulation requirements around who can see what, who can do what, those kind of things. We also we talked about plugins as a way to expand the Backstage usability, and so we're contributing many plugins to the community, expanding the community. We're also working with third-party ISVs to help them create what do you call the plugins into the Backstage, and we're going to certify them to help you as a customer, as an end user, to be able to feel comfortable to go and deploy a plugin in production without worrying about security, without worrying about maintainability and validity of those plugins. With that, I want to just quickly talk quickly, the URL is available for you to look at the actual YouTube videos. And this was actually presented in InnerSource Commons community calls. As you can see, there's InnerSource Commons March call. Deutsche Bank was talking about how they are using Backstage for inner sourcing. They have a very good, it's very interesting talk by Miguel. And we talk about reuse manifesto. So they are want to reuse first before they create anything new. It's a great talk by Miguel, and he talked about how he's able to make changes to the Backstage to allow you developer to find information much more quickly and before they even try to build a new software. So it's a very great talk by Miguel. Let's take a look at it. Also, the Spotify started this whole Backstage, and they're obviously using InnerSource to build Backstage. In fact, all the tools, all the plugins, everything is done in a very collaborative fashion across the whole company. And it's a great model for somebody who wants to use InnerSource strategy to adopt something like that. And they had great success with it. Obviously, the creator of Backstage. So please take a look at both of these videos, and hopefully you will learn more about how to get InnerSource strategy accelerated through Backstage. With that, I'm going to pass the ball back to Cara.
Thanks, Balaji. So just as you just mentioned, InnerSource Commons, it's a great community. It's a growing community. Red Hat is also a part of InnerSource Commons as of this past summer. I recommend you join the community. There's the website there. It is supporting many different projects that are open source. So they are connected, even though they are InnerSource focused. They are a part of FINOS. There is a dotted line there. And so with that, I want to talk about the FINOS communities that you're able to join as well. So there are two special interest groups, the InnerSource Special Interest Group and the DevOps Automation / Backstage SIG. They're great resources. They have folks that are part of your industry. There are InnerSource experts and Backstage experts as well. So I encourage you to join those SIGs. Their links are there below. And really want to take the opportunity to thank you for your time, and hope you enjoy the rest of the forum.
Thank you very much.